Jim Bob Cooter's offense really wasn't very good against the Minnesota Vikings. It's got to be better against the Buffalo Bills if the Colts are going to be able to beat the Bills, and they really need to beat the Bills because falling to 4-6 is a place from which the Colts are going to have trouble climbing. Cooter has got to hope that the offensive line opens holes, protects Flacco, gets Jonathan Taylor untracked, and then you've got to get the ball on time and on target to the receivers for the Colts. Have people figured out this offense? Did the Vikings figure something out? The Bills, as a result of the Vikings figuring something out, are they going to be able to figure out exactly the same thing? We're going to find out. Sunday is a day of reckoning for the Indianapolis Colts. Colts, they got to win that game. You fall to 4-6, you got a problem. Digging out of that hole is going to be really, really tough.
Yeah, Joe's played a bunch of good ball in this league for a long time. He's delivered the ball in a bunch of different big spots, big areas, tough pockets, able to sort of push the ball down the field when needed, sort of press the edges of the defense and sort of work through progressions when asked for. So he's been a really good quarterback in this league for a long time, sort of doing all those things, all those quarterback traits of finding those completions and creating explosives and all those type of things.
Nate?
Hey, Jim Bob, when you have a shift like this where you go from, one quarterback who very different than the other kind of midseason, do you, just as a play designer, do you find yourself going back to maybe some of the things you used to run with other veterans, whether that was Stafford or Peyton, or do you kind of stick more with things that you guys have already been running? How do you kind of find yourself adjusting?
Well, I think with all of us coaches, we're always balancing maybe what we've been running recently, what our guys are very comfortable with, and maybe what's in our past, in our history. That's every coach probably in this building. We all have different histories. I think as we go through every game week, as we're approaching every opponent, I'm often peeking old tape, sort of to see ideas or to see what might have worked against a certain opponent. But you can't go drawing up every old play you used to run. And sort of recreating the playbook for our guys here. So there's a little bit of a balance there. No matter no matter who your quarterback is or who your ex-receiver is or anything, any of those guys, we all have our old plays us coaches have run or drawn up before or something like that. But ultimately it's our job to put the best things on the sheet to go have success, this week with our guys against this week's opponent. And you got to be careful doing too much of that sort of off the wall old stuff, So always a constant conversation for a coaching staff.
Kevin?
Jim Bob, where do you want to see the most growth from Anthony?
He's working on improving a ton of different sort of areas. That's the nature of being a young quarterback in this league is, when you play ball, you find out different things to work on. You find out different areas of your game. He's being diligent about working on those. Last week was a good week of work. He's going to keep putting that work in, and we're able to do that within the practice structure. Getting reps, working individual, throwing the ball to the receivers, all the stuff that quarterbacks do. We're working on all sorts of stuff. I don't want to pinpoint one or two. Put anything out there. We're just working on getting better, all of us, and Anthony's right there with us, and we're working behind the scenes on that right now.
James?
Along those lines, Jim Bob, you've been around young quarterbacks, old quarterbacks, every quarterback. When it comes to the younger guys, what do you think it is just to obviously there's a play style you have to kind of shift to the NFL, but just from a leadership standpoint, what are some things you look at and say, okay, this is what we need from a young guy, whether it's AR, whether it's Trevor Lawrence, whether it's anybody that's kind of young and being thrust into that spotlight?
Yeah, I think it's, for a young quarterback, sort of as you're transitioning into your NFL career and really getting that thing started, getting that thing going, you're learning so much about the game, about how defenses are defending you, about how you're working through your progressions. I think, one key of that is just sort of working on your craft, I know you asked about leadership, but gosh, you gotta work on your craft, work on your job really, really hard at that position. It's tough to bypass something that's that important when you are in that room. And a lot of times, in this league, when you're working about it in a good way, in a good manner, that's leadership in itself. The way you work, the way you sort of operate. I think that's probably true for most all of us. A good way to lead is just, through your daily actions, through your daily sort of habits. We're all trying to sort of work hard and go get better each week. And I think we all sort of lead each other that way.
George.
Jim Bob, a couple questions here. Have you been a part of a system in the past where you've played two quarterbacks intentionally during a game? And even if not, like philosophically, do you think that's something that can work, or is it something that would hold an offense back?
Not that I can recall. Not that I can recall, but the recall's, getting a little hazier over the years, George. People have done it. It's existed in the league, in college football, all that over the years. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to go play ball. So I can't recall a certain experience I've had with it. So I don't think I'd consider myself an expert in that category. But people have done it sort of different ways over the years.
Joel.
Everybody, pretty much every defense, it feels like, is playing that too high shell now. What's the best way to still get chunk plays when defenses are kind of gearing everything to stop them?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a function of that defense or a calling card of that style of defense is trying to limit those chunk plays. And then sort of the challenge for us offensively is to say, well, we're going to find a way to do it anyway, and that scheme, that's personnel, that's maybe the way you go about attacking a drive or attacking, a personnel member on the defense a certain way. There are some schemes that have been a little more successful versus that than others. We're looking to not broadcast those out to the, any future opponents. But yeah, it's a big part of what's going on in the league right now. You're seeing less middle field close, less single high safety. You're seeing more middle open. I'm not a defensive coordinator or a defensive expert, but I sure do think those guys are trying to limit some big plays and make you earn your points with long drives. That's an offensive coordinator looking at defenses around the league and trying to guess what they're thinking. And it's on us to go score those points anyway. So they think they've got a strategy that's going to limit the points that we're going to score, and it's on us to counter that. That's the nature of the beast in this league, and it's part of our game right now. But yeah, you're entirely correct. The middle field open defense has sort of climbed back up. Those percentages are higher, and we're trying to combat that.
Stephen.
Hey, Jim Bob. A little bit off, maybe a little different question, I guess. Shane he had to make this quarterback change, and he's still a young head coach. Probably, maybe it might be the biggest decision he's had to make, in that job. I wonder if you could just address, like, seeing him work alongside him, how he sort of deliberates over things, and he seems very thorough. You have to make these kinds of decisions with conviction, just generally speaking, just how he approaches things like that, just to kind of give maybe people a sense.
Yeah, you hit a couple of them on the head. I mean, he's very thorough, sort of working through anything. Obviously I work with him in a bunch of different areas, talking through a bunch of different things. Could be as small as just a little tweak within one football play we have up. We try to be very thorough as a staff, and Shane really pushes that. That's a part of, I think how he operates is being thorough and being thoughtful, and sort of trying to communicate well when that time comes, so yeah, very thorough and thoughtful when making any decision, right? Like I said, we're doing 1,000 things on the call sheet right now. We're trying to be thorough and thoughtful going through all those.
There's Jim Bob Cooter, and you can understand and you can see that he's as frustrated as anybody with the offensive performance of his team going up against the Vikings. And you got to hope it's different this week. You got to hope they play with a different level of passion. I don't know whether it's passion, but certainly execution, ability to go and affect change, not turn the ball over, and figure out a way to get over on the Bills in a way that most don't.